Greetings, geeks, and welcome to Wizards, the podcast guide to comics YouTube series. This is Action Figure Fury. So we figured since it's WrestleMania weekend, we might as well talk about some wrestling figures, right? And I knew that Steven had a lot. I have one to show for,
Oh
but
boy.
but I wanted to see what he had because I've heard whispers of his vast wrestling collection,
That's
and
true.
I will start off with my relatively boring one wrestler that I have left. I will tell you, I used to have the Marty Jannetty that you would push down and he would spring up.
He's
I
in
think
here.
I think he's in the front there. Yep, I had that one. I also had.
You must have had Shawn Michaels because it was a 2-pack.
I might have. Yeah, I think I did have Shawn Michaels. Yeah,
It
was
was
it
a
just
Rockers 2-pack.
I didn't know it was a 2-pack.
Oh yeah.
I think I had the Ultimate Warrior that would, do the suplex or whatever.
That's in my son's room somewhere, and we can't find it. He was playing with it.
But the only figure that I have that has remained, and my daughter still plays with it to this day, is this Hulk
Oh
Hogan.
yes.
So
I love it.
this was a really cool one because I could still use, because what was cool about this is you can use this figure to, grab onto any other action figure for anything. It just fit around it perfectly. And I knew that there was two Hulk Hogans. There was this one, and then there was the other one that did the throwing over the top. But this was the one that I got, and I just loved it because the face is so good in this. It's unbelievable how really terrific this is. And in all the years of my beating up figures, this was one of them that you just couldn't break this thing. It's unbreakable. It's got a few little cracks, but I don't know. It's pretty awesome, and I still love it. It's just a cool figure.
That figure was really training and saying its prayers and eating its vitamins.
Yes, sure was. But as I mentioned, Steven has quite a significant collection here, and he's showcasing some of it, and I believe it's even in the ring.
Yes, I'll show you here. I'm going to try to get like a wide shot here. So I recently, like last summer, picked up this vintage, or actually it's new, but it's like a retro ring.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I picked it up earlier because it was going for like at its lowest $15,
Mm-hmm.
and then it shot up in price.
Oh wow!
When they stopped making it, so I paid more than that for this.
It has the belt too. Did it also have the Intercontinental belt as well as the championship belt?
This is just my Intercontinental belt that I had from like another figure. But yeah, so long story short, I had so many of these wrestling figures as a kid. This had to be my second favorite toy line, behind like Superpowers. And I just played with these more than Superpowers. I played with these all the time
because
I was a huge wrestling fan.
Like each figure had some sort of unique thing that they could do, the springing off the ropes, whatever. It was just
and you could build out your own storylines as a kid. It was exciting.
And the commercials were awesome. The commercials sold them so bad. It was like amazing.
I have some of my on one of my YouTube pages.
Do you really?
Yeah.
So I can see you've got Razor Ramon. I see Randy Savage. I see Sergeant Slaughter, Jake the Snake. Who else you got in there? What's some cool ones?
So basically, I had a bunch of these, and then in college, I gave them all to my friend John, and I said, "I don't want these anymore. You can have them." John, who's been on the show, who's on the Villains podcast.
You didn't want them anymore, really?
I was like, I don't think I need these anymore, so I gave them to him.
And then 20 years later, you're making a podcast and talking about the figure.
Exactly. So then, like through the years, he's been like, "Hey, I don't need these anymore. If you want them back, just tell me." And so I said, "Yeah, I want them back." But because he has so much stuff, he's been digging through storage boxes for years and just finding them. And recently for my 40th birthday, he like uncovered a bunch of my original figures, including Razor Ramon, Texas Tornado, the model. I've got IRS here that he found.
IRS, wow.
$1 Million Man that he found, like in the green suit.
Oh yeah. Didn't he have two? Didn't he have a black suit also?
He had a black suit as well. And then there was one with like no suit, which was just the pants.
Yes.
He found my original Macho Man Randy Savage figure, which had this.
Oh yeah.
Drop. So slowly but surely, John is digging through and finding figures for me. And then like I've bought some Recently, Adam sent me this Jake the Snake Roberts when we first became
Didn't it
friends.
come with a snake?
It did.
Yes.
And that's hard. It's always the accessories that are the hardest to find.
Yeah.
And then they started making retro figures. So I bought this Iron Sheik, which is a new figure, which is made to look like an old figure.
Mm-hmm.
And they just announced that those are coming back. So I will go broke.
That's cool.
Buying all of those. As a kid, this was one of my favorites, Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Oh, wow.
Famously, there was a prototype of Greg the Hammer Valentine in his rhythm and blues gear. And now Matt Cardona, the wrestler, he owns it. I've wanted a replica for so long. One of these days, I'll pull the trigger.
Who were your favorite wrestlers of this time?
At this time, there was no one better than this guy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Roddy Piper, by far my favorite. Greg Valentine was one of my favorites. Mr. Perfect. I was a big Mr. Perfect fan. Ric Flair, Demolition. I was a big fan of Demolition. And you know what? You know who I was a big fan of and who I saw wrestle front row at the Nassau Coliseum. One of the best matches I've ever seen was Bret Hart versus Owen Hart. And I was a huge Owen Hart fan. I thought Owen Hart was just the best. Yeah. So those were my guys.
That's cool.
Obviously the Nature Boy.
Mm-hmm.
So this figure is just sucks. It's a really bad figure off the Rick Rude body.
So I have a couple of unique fandoms of these wrestlers, the real life wrestlers. You'll never guess my 5 favorite. You might guess one of them, but the other 4 you wouldn't guess.
I would pick you as an Ultimate Warrior guy.
Oh, I love the Ultimate Warrior.
Okay. Loved his energy. So you're talking early 90s or
even early 90s and like late 80s.
Okay, good, because that was my period as well. Good guys or bad guys? Were you more of a good guy?
All good guys.
All good guys. Okay, now I'm thinking. So not the Honky Tonk Man, who is a lot of fun.
He is fun, but not my favorite. And not the Bushwhackers, if you were thinking of the Bushwhackers. So
definitely Warrior. We got that. Hogan, I'm assuming you liked Hogan.
I liked Hogan, but he wasn't my favorite.
He wasn't your favorite. I'm thinking. You've kind of trapped me in a little conundrum here.
You give up?
Sure, I give up.
So I loved the Legion of Doom.
Okay.
I love those shoulder pads, man. Those are awesome.
Those are awesome.
I loved the British Bulldog.
Oh yeah, he was great.
He was awesome. And I think it was Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Mm-hmm. I've got one of his figures here somewhere. Yeah.
I had that figure.
I have the other one as well, but that's still in John's storage.
And you have somebody in the way back corner that I liked a lot.
Hacksaw?
I liked Hacksaw, but
Big Boss Man?
Oh, I love the Big Boss Man.
He was good.
Love the Boss Man. He was awesome.
You know what I loved more than anything in this world? Those wrestling ice cream bars.
Oh, those were with the cookie on either side. Oh, and
that's how, like, when you're 7 or 8, that's how you learn a lot of these guys. You get an ice cream bar. You're like, a Big Boss Man. Oh, okay, it sounds pretty cool.
You hear that music of the circus man, ice cream man coming down the street. You're like, yes! It was for me. It was one of those. It was either like the Spider-Man ice cream pop with the gumball eyes, or the wrestling, ice cream sandwich thing, which was amazing as well.
It was so good. You know what else I loved? And this is a very obscure ice cream. Bozo the Clown ice cream.
See, I like the frog ice cream, the green one.
Oh, yeah.
That was delicious.
I remember that one.
And full of high fructose corn syrup.
That was like Bubbalo Bill. Remember Bubbalo Bill? He was like a Western character.
Such a random. Oh man,
we're going off the rails here.
Kids don't even know what we had, which was glorious. Now, the one thing that I noticed in your collection, and I don't remember they even really had, did they have an Undertaker figure at this time?
They did.
Okay.
And I do have that, but it's not here.
Mm-hmm.
It's still in that storage unit.
Now, the original ring, did it come with detachable walls for a cage match?
I feel like that was the WCW ring.
One of them, I knew one of them had a cage. I wasn't sure which one.
It was WCW. It wasn't this ring.
Okay.
I mean, now people make custom things that you can make.
I remember with the ring, after a while, when you would play with it, the elasticity of the straps would wear out. You'd have like one that would always be drooping, and they wouldn't hold up. But it was such a cool ring.
These turnbuckles are different now. Mm-hmm. Like they're sturdier than the turnbuckles we had.
Yeah.
Just the way they're built. The other thing was like the sticker in the center would get like all the paint marks on
Oh
it
yes, it would. That's
because
right.
you would just be like bashing your toys into the sticker. Yeah, it's hard to find these rings in really good condition, like the old ones, because
That's another
kids beat
thing
the
with
shit out of it.
these particular figures is that you could really beat them up, and they just held up because they were just made rock, for the most part, rock solid. I think people would break a finger off here and there maybe when they're like,
oh yeah, the
them.
fingers were gone, goners. I had the Dusty Rhodes figure, which is now pretty hard to find.
Dusty
and I gave someone a bionic elbow, and his arm just popped right off. It was the bionic elbow from hell.
Oh man, the kids today don't realize the wrestlers that we had. Oh my goodness, they were so cool.
They were larger than life. They were cartoon characters.
They were essentially superheroes come to life. Before we had superhero movies, we had the WWF wrestlers, and just everything about it just was unbelievable. And just sitting there on a Saturday morning watching wrestling after watching a morning of cartoons was just glorious for me. I loved it as a kid.
And having to spend hours playing with action figures is not really a thing the kids do too much anymore.
Not at all. Not like this. Not like that.
Yeah, there wasn't that much going on.
Yeah. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have a cell phone to fart around on or text our friends with and stuff.
And we had Nintendo, but the games could only take you so far.
And the thing, for me, I'm not a big gamer. I never really was, but I always loved playing games with other people. If I'm just gonna sit there and play Mario for 6 hours and try to not beat it, it gets frustrating. But I could create my own Royal Rumble or any kind of crazy match. It was just so fun to do that kind of stuff. And you could have Skeletor jump in the ring with Hulk Hogan for all you care. It's just
it was a different time. This toy line was so much fun, so playable.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I'm starting to build it back up again. If anyone's listening and wants to just send me a bunch of their old wrestling toys, I will gladly take them and
Who's
keep them
the
here.
Guy in the back row, second one in?
Back row. The Bushwhackers?
Okay, it is the Bushwhackers. Yeah,
it's Butch.
Yeah.
Butch.
They had the best music coming out. They were just so zany and wacky. To just come out, they just were lunatics. It was so funny.
When I used to go to Nassau Coliseum, we'd often get front row seats because my dad's cousin, I think, worked for the Nassau Coliseum.
Wow.
And cool. It was great. But my mom would not let us get up when the Bushwhackers were coming down the ring because they would lick kids' heads. And they were like, my mom was like, "You're not getting your head licked. Don't even think about it."
Your mom was way ahead of her time.
Oh, she was totally right. Now, I can't even shake hands with people.
Yeah, I know.
Of COVID. I'm getting licked by a wrestler,
by a random sweaty guy. Yeah, I never ever went to a wrestling match live, and bummer. I regret it because it was just one of those things where I would have loved to have gone, but my parents just weren't. I don't know if they would have wanted to go, and I never thought to ask. It just wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
But, it must have been such an experience to see that stuff live and.
The first wrestling show I went to was in 1991. The main event was Undertaker versus Ultimate Warrior.
Wow.
And the second match on the card was a battle royal, and the winner got to face Mr. Perfect for the Intercontinental belt. And one of the wrestlers in the battle royal was Andre the Giant. And it was his last match in the United States.
No,
I was just at randomly as a 10-year-old.
Wow. Holy cow.
Texas Tornado won that battle royal. Yeah, it was cool. And I got to see Piper, and I was 6th row for Macho Man versus Flair.
Now, have you ever seen the $1 million belt in person, at a match when you went?
Yeah, I have.
That was such a cool thing. You're just he's wearing this giant $sign belt. It was such a cool thing. Wow, I love that thing.
One time I was sitting front row, and I think it was Nasty Boys versus Legion of Doom, or maybe Nasty Boys versus Natural Disasters. And
the Natural Disasters. Was it Earthquake and Typhoon were their names?
I've got Typhoon here. I still have to get Earthquake, but here's Typhoon.
Yes. That's awesome.
And so the Nasty Boys were the champions, and Howard Finkel, the ring announcer, was holding the belt by the ringside. And I was, 12, 13, and I saw that belt and I reached out my hand and I just touched it. And you see Finkel like looking around like, who did that? And I just like backed away and got out of there. It was such like a thrill.
That's amazing. I love that. That's so cool. Wow.
I just couldn't help myself. I had to risk it.
I don't blame you. I would have done the same thing. I would have tried to steal the thing. I'm like, oh, give me that. Let me just wear it for 1 second. I'll just put it on 1 second. I want to see how heavy it is. We actually, years ago, when I worked for Apple, we had a contest in the Genius Bar that if you had like the highest customer satisfaction rating, you would get a replica WWF or WWE championship belt for that month. And I won it 1 month, and I just literally held it for like an hour. Just like, wow, this is so cool. And they're like, you can bring it home. I'm like, no. And I just put it above my desk and let it sit there. And everyone knew when they came into our repair room, I won it that month, and everyone had to stare at it. It was just such a cool kind of thrill. Like, wow, this is awesome. It was such a fun
You
thing.
were the champion.
Yes, for 1 month.
It's a good reign. That's a good title reign.
It is, absolutely.
Especially in the 90s, people were transferring that belt over every few days.
Every week, yeah, for sure. Oh man. But I figured we would just talk a little bit about wrestlers because of the I figured we'd talk about wrestlers because the what was the thing called?
WrestleMania?
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. So shit. I figured, we would have a little discussion about wrestlers because WrestleMania is this weekend, and I got an email that Peacock has WrestleMania in pay-per-view. I'm like, is pay-per-view still a thing? I guess it is, for wrestling at least.
Yeah, it is a little bit. I used to go I used to watch it like with my cousins and like, we would all get together, my friends. It was a big deal.
What was your favorite major wrestling event?
You mean of the big four?
Of the big four, yeah.
Royal Rumble.
I loved Royal Rumble, but I did also love SummerSlam. It was kind of fun. I liked Survivor Series.
Yeah.
I never thought that WrestleMania was necessarily as exciting as the Royal Rumble, though.
There was something about that Royal Rumble. Like every 2 minutes, a new guy comes in. It's like this little
30 people in a ring just throwing bodies out of it. Oh man,
it's like getting a present every 2 minutes. Basically, you're like, oh, what's gonna happen? Who's it gonna be?
Who's next? You're like, oh,
and you're like, it's one of the Bushwhackers. Okay, and it's like, oh my god, it's the Warrior! It's the Warrior!
And it's kind of funny because I don't remember ever being like a huge surprise who would win. It was always probably going to be one of them. Like, you wouldn't see a Bushwhacker necessarily win the Royal Rumble,
No. But I mean, the year that Ric Flair won was a huge surprise, I felt.
Really?
I mean, just because a villain had never really won. I guess
That's
Big
true.
John Studd won, but I didn't watch that one as a kid. But yeah, like that was a big deal. And then the next year, Yokozuna won.
That's right. I remember the Yokozuna one. I watched that one. I remember that.
Yeah, that was
That's
a bummer. We were, you're just like, oh man, like
This guy?
he's gonna win. This is crazy.
That's hilarious. But I figured we would just showcase our wrestlers, or my wrestler, singular.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
And, it was just kind of cool to have a conversation about wrestlers and something different for the podcast. But, as always, you can check us out on our social media, on Instagram at Wizards_comics, on Twitter at Wizards Comics. Subscribe here on YouTube and let us know, what wrestlers do you have? Do you still have any? Tag us and show us. We'd love to see them. But as always, till next time, don't forget to be books, bagged and boarded.